ladies and gentlemen, dinner chairs, members of the host committee, Dr. Abramowitz, Dr. Messer, thank you for the invitation. Distinguished honorees, a little lower. How's that? All right, we can do this. Mr. Yalon, General, thank you so much for your kind words. And thank you for all you've done for U.S. and Israeli military relations. I remember well your service as Chief of the IDF, and in those still early days of the current struggle against radical Islamism, we look to your nation for lessons in fighting terrorism based on your many years of experience. And I congratulate you for your well-deserved award this evening. Excuse me. Minister Steinitz, your friend John Kyle called. Where are you sitting here? There you are. And praised you to the sky. So I came in expecting you to walk on air. And then I heard that you wrote a philosophy book at 29, and I worried. I've got to be honest, it concerned me. But then I heard what you've done with the Israeli economy, and I have to say, first, congratulations on your award. Israel's economic resilience is a testament clearly to the hardworking people of Israel, but also to your country's stewardship of an economy that is wisely hospitable to investment and enterprise, and I congratulate you for it. In fact, if you'd like to move to the United States, I'd be happy to sponsor you. Needless to say, we could use you. And I thank you all for the honor of receiving the Menachem Award. It's a special privilege, considering its last recipient. Courage is a word that's frequently tossed around, but when describing Prime Minister Netanyahu, courageous is the right word. Days after Islamist extremists brought down the Twin Towers, just a short distance from here, no foreign leader offered wiser counsel than your Prime Minister. He cautioned against the Bush administration fashioning a quick alliance of nations to respond to the horrors of that day. Instead, we discussed the idea that America might best be somewhat more deliberate and first determine the various tasks that would be needed. And only then build coalitions around those tasks, different coalitions. And out of our discussion came the thought that I passed on to President Bush the very next day, that the mission must determine the coalition. The coalition ought not to determine the mission. Coalitions included, for example, the coalition of nations supporting attacks on Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, the coalition to counter the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, a different coalition to share intelligence and track bank accounts of terrorist organizations, to mention a few. As I accept this award, I'm proud to stand with you all this evening, especially at a time when there are those here in this country and around the world seemingly distancing themselves somewhat from Israel. I've spent so many years in and out of government, witnessed to high and lows of public service, that very few things seem to surprise me anymore. Over my 79 years, I've heard and seen some strange things done in the name of diplomacy. But I must say that even I find it amazing to watch Washington's current treatment of Israel. With rhetoric so strident, rhetoric so strident it should be reserved for the now routine outrages committed by Syria, Iran, or North Korea. We hear criticism of Israel for constructing buildings in Jerusalem. Some even make the stunning argument that Israel has brought anti-Semitism upon itself, while denying Israeli leaders the basic courtesies afforded diplomats and visiting heads of state, even from countries that are not particularly friendly to the United States. All of this seems calculated to send an unfortunate message that Israel best question whether it can still count on its special relationship with the United States. While that may be true for some, I can say that it's not true for the American people. To those here from Israel, I hope you'll return with a message for your government and your people. You have a great many friends here in the United States. Certainly I and all of those gathered here this evening are among them. And know that millions of people all across our great nation appreciate and support the Israeli people. Americans understand that Israel is a country facing hostility from unfriendly neighbors and even from some misguided souls in the United Nations. That Israel regularly endures anti-Semitism and threats of annihilation. That Israel remains under assault not just from terrorists who have gained a foothold in the Palestinian territories, not just from a nearby Iran that makes no secret of its desire to wipe Israel off the map and that pursues nuclear weapons that could make them capable of doing that. Israel's also under the softer assault from nations that are not outright enemies, but that view Israel as somewhat of a nuisance, an irritating impediment to peace in the region, as the minister mentioned. Israel's not the cause of instability, of poverty, or of the region's ills. Let there be no doubt about that. But the United States knows differently. Our country was among the first to recognize Israel. There are many from both of our political parties who cherish and respect the miracle that is the Jewish state. My hope and expectation is that our country will demonstrate leadership that will stand up and acknowledge that Israel is not what's wrong in the Middle East. Israel is one thing that is right in the Middle East. It is a healthy economy, as we've heard this evening, carved out of a thin sliver of desert by the ingenuity and grit of its people. It is one of the lone outposts of freedom, economic modernity, and opportunity in a troubled and very dangerous part of the world. Courage, Aristotle said, is the first of virtues because it makes all other virtues possible. I thought I'd quote a philosopher just even though I've not written the 29-year-old's philosophy book. I would submit that no nation or people understand this, meaning courage, as well as Israel and the Jewish people. For the embattled, courage is not simply a virtue. It is a necessity. In a world where anti-Semitism may well be on the rise, Israel needs its friends to stand proudly and visibly at its side. We're all familiar with the story of the St. Louis, the ocean liner that left Hamburg in May of 1939 with 938 Jewish refugees fleeing Nazi Germany. And like so many who dreamed of America, they set sail across the Atlantic, hoping to find freedom from persecution. The steamer, of course, steamed slowly towards Florida, waiting for the visas to be approved by the State Department. And passengers sent telegrams to the President and to others, imploring them to intervene. But their pleas were met with silence, and with the lights of Miami visible off the bow, the ship had no choice but to return to Europe. Without recourse, the passengers of the St. Louis were landed in Belgium within a few short months, it would succumb to Hitler's westward advance. Under Nazi occupation, many of the passengers were shipped to Dachau, Buchenwald, and Auschwitz, places from which few would return. And by 1945, more than 250 of them had perished in Nazi death camps. 250 individuals who'd seen the lights of our shores but had been turned away. If you think about it, in a way, the hope gathered on the St. Louis is still sailing, still in search of friendly ports, still hopeful, and I would add, still deserving of support. America, our government, and our people again have a choice to embrace and defend a friend or to turn away. Indifference in 1939 was the opposite of courage, just as would be indifference today. You know, the United States of America, as everyone in this room knows, is a good and giving country. And when given a chance, Americans generally find that they make the right choice. We may not always get it right first, but we eventually get there. And I am confident that our people will stand with Israel as we should and as we must. May God continue to bless the values of Israel and of the United States of America. Thank you very much.